Lately, I keep encountering a diminishing of the significance of words, both in media programs and from people who are close in their views to mine. I hear don't pay attention to what they say. There are all sorts of people watch their actions instead. To me, this idea seems extremely unconstructive, extremely destructive, harmful, and simply very mistaken. Not only because in the beginning was the word, but also because in the world of information, ignoring what people say is at least an error. Words often conceal intentions, so we should know how to decipher them, to analyze them, to understand what is behind the words. Words are very important. And in fact, I want to start by talking a little about the words of today's most significant actor in global politics. I mean, not only Trump, but also his team. And then I will touch on the actions that inevitably follow. Of course, actions matter, and we will certainly discuss them today. So let's take a look at what Trump and his team are saying and doing. First of all, Trump is often called the deal maestro and praised for his negotiation skills. Here is an example of the negotiation style of his team. One of the key members of Trump administration recently stated that my Starlink system is the backbone of the Ukrainian army. If I turn it off, the entire front line will collapse. Clearly, this statement contains a direct threat. How else could it be interpreted? My system is the foundation of Ukrainian army. If I turn it off, the whole line will collapse. How can you interpret it? Poland's foreign minister Sikorski responded, saying that Starlink for Ukraine is paid by the Poland's Ministry of Digitalization at a cost of 50 million per year. Even if we set aside the ethical issue of threatening the victim of aggression, if a company turns out to be an unreliable supplier, we will be forced to look for other solutions. That's, he said, more or less. It was firm but polite response. Then U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio entered the debate, claiming that nobody threatened to disconnect Ukraine from Starlink, which is a lie. I'm sure that they threatened us with disconnecting from Starlink, knowing that it will be quite disastrous. I mean, you rely on some system and then some who was supposed to be your partner is switching it off behind your back. So, he said nobody threatened to disconnect Ukraine from Starlink and added just say thank you. The implication being that Ukraine should be grateful and remember that without this service they would have lost the war and Russian troops would be now at Poland's border. No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't. Without Starlink, we would find some other system, probably more reliable and not depending on the whims of some idiot in Trump cabinet who is, okay, let it slide. In other words, the familiar rhetoric. You forgot to say thank you, and while you are at it, you should probably apologize too. So this is straight from Ramzan Kadyrov's playbook. And then Elon Musk himself addressed the Polish foreign minister. And he is not, Elon Musk, not a government official. He's simply private US citizen, but with some quite a lot of sway in current administration. And so he addressed him with the message, calm down, little man. So, little man, just as he previously referred to Canada's prime minister as a little girl. This is the style of street thugs. This is the discourse of Trump's team. Now, let's turn to Trump himself. Here are some of his recent statements. I'm paraphrasing, it's not direct quote. So he acknowledged that Russia is currently pounding Ukraine, but then concluded, honestly, Ukraine is more difficult because they have no leverage. That is, from his perspective, the key issue is who holds the cards. Moscow has them, Ukraine does not, so negotiations are only possible with those who have bargaining power, while those left empty-handed at the table are simply out of luck. And furthermore, Trump said, if Ukraine does not want to negotiate a settlement, we will walk away. Following the U.S. restrictions on Ukraine's access to intelligence data, Trump confirmed that Putin is taking advantage of this situation. He added, with understanding, normalizing aggression from Putin, that anyone in his place would do the same. So implications that Putin is, yes, Putin is an aggressor, but if anyone else were in his position, they would act just like him. Again, revealing just similar world outlook as Putin's. So right now, you have a clone of Putin sitting in White House in Oval Office. Trump also recently remarked that the US-Canada border agreement is unacceptable and needs to be renegotiated. In other words, the stable post-war world order is crumbling because Trump has come along and now demands a revision of established borders. Something that had remained unchanged for decades. And this current border agreement, I think, is more than 100 years old, from 1908. He also demanding a revision of agreement on water resource distribution with Canada. And then there is endless stream of lies and fakes. One particularly revealing episode is the way Musk's brilliant team boasted about cutting wasteful spending. They claim to have shut down a $8 million project to breed transgender mice. Outrageous, yes? Except that when this claim was investigated, it turned out that such a program never existed in the first place. What actually happened? Musk, young team of Hitlerjugend, Hunwenbeins, Tonton Makuts, or Aprichnik, whatever you can, mostly they look like Hunwei beans from Chinese Cultural Revolution. So, those young ideological zealots saw the name of a program studying the effects of hormonal therapy, including testosterone, on various diseases. The program was called transgenic mice, referring to genetically modified mice, a common practice in medical research. But Musk team misinterpreted transgenic as transgender, because they are so fixated on everything transgender. So, and they decided it was some kind of a scandalous waste of funds, so they shut it down. This is the kind of efficiency we are dealing with. The same efficiency that is now leading to mass program closures and dismissals across US governmental institutions. What exactly has Musk ideological purge done? Who was fired? What programs were shut down? This will all require serious independent investigation in future. Now, as for the United States assistance to Ukraine, whether it is a temporary suspension or it is a complete halt, this is a crucial question. NBC News recently published an investigation suggesting that Trump has no intention of resuming military aid to Ukraine, even if Ukraine signs agreement on resource, this infamous or notorious minerals deal, rare earth minerals deals. According to sources close to Trump, he has told his aides that the mere signing of these agreements will not be enough to restore military support or intelligence sharing. So it was not about the deal, it was not about this Oval Office debacle. He wanted a pretext to fulfill the order of Putin to cut the aid to Ukraine and to cut intelligence sharing with Ukraine, because I think Kellogg said that this cutting of aid and cutting of intelligence sharing was a big concession to Putin, meaning that they asked for this concession, that they directly ask United States to cut the funds, to cut the intelligence data, so that it will benefit them. And then they launched immediately. They launched a series of air strikes, of missile strikes and drone strikes at the Ukrainian, mostly at energy and civilian infrastructure. So to exhaust what supplies of missiles we have, of these air defense interceptors that we have, and we will not receive any more from United States because the aid was cut. So any deaths of Ukrainian civilians are now on the hands of Trump. That's this blood on his hands. He and his cabinet, his administration, are the enemies of Ukraine and should be treated as such. Enemies of Ukraine with the blood of Ukrainian civilians and military men, of service members on their hands. So, what does Trump want? He wants Zelensky to change his stance on peace negotiations and be prepared for territorial concessions. What kind of concessions? Likely whatever Putin demands, because after all, Putin holds the cards and Zelensky does not. Additionally, sources close to Trump claim that he would like Zelensky to step down. Of course, this is not surprising. There is already a coordinated attack against the Ukrainian president from all sides. But it is not just about Zelensky personally. Any Ukrainian leader, regardless of elections or who is in power, would be an obstacle. The idea is that Ukraine should have a president who obediently accepts whatever Trump, via Putin, dictates, and it is completely unrealistic. It won't happen. Nobody will do that. And if he will try to sign he will be disobeyed. Ukraine army and Ukrainian public will not obey such orders. Will not obey. We just said, fuck you. You are not our president anymore. Fuck you. So, I mean, it is absolutely impossible to do. They just don't understand who they are dealing with. They are idiots. And they are dangerous idiots that will lead to many, many deaths. So we've talked about the words. Now let's talk about actions. There is an increasing sense that the United States has so drastically changed its global stance that neither Europe nor Ukraine should continue viewing the US as a reliable ally. This seems to be a done deal. European leaders still hope to steer the US back on course and are afraid of being left without the American security umbrella. But there are strong doubts that this is possible. Trump appears to prioritize not just a partnership with Russia, but possibly even open confrontation with Europe. And he certainly wants to abandon Ukraine. Not just withdrawal support, but push it into geopolitical insignificance. Ukraine, as an independent actor in global politics, does not fit Trump plans. It is too unruly. The main question now for Ukraine and Europe is how to ensure security without the United States. So it is time to explore the possibilities of European security system independent of United States. And of course, having a US on board would be preferable. But in reality, for at least the next 4 years, perhaps longer, Europe must act on its own. The US has effectively ceased to be part of Western civilization in the way it once was. The American people remained, and American culture is still a part of Euro-Atlantic world. But politically, the United States is now something different. What should Europe do? Assess its military capabilities. Ukraine has one of the strongest armies in the world. And if its resources, especially if its formidable drone force, are combined with European financial and military industrial potential, a solid defensive alliance should emerge. This is where Europe is heading. Thank you for watching, have a nice day, and Slava Ukraini!